Yo, what's up YouTube? It's your boy Bobby D, back again with another hot, juicy video. And guys, I'm joined by the man, Steve Cook again, as always, to discuss some hair topics with you guys. And so, you know, it's been 1 year since I've had my hair transplant, and the procedure that I did have was an FUT, where they, you know, take the hair from the back and place it where it's needed. And, you know, I chose that procedure just because, you know, if I don't want to take finasteride my whole life or something happens, it's a great way to preserve my hair longer. And so that's why I chose that. But, you know, there's also an FUE procedure as well. And so I kind of wanted to talk to Steve about, hey, you know, which one should you take or consider if you're thinking about getting a hair transplant. So Steve, if you take it away.
Absolutely, happy to be back, Bobby. Thanks for having me back on the channel. And I'll try to keep this somewhat short for your viewers, because this could be a very long conversation. The difference between FUE and FUT, there's a lot of topics to cover. So let's kind of break it down. Contrary to the internet, meaning the internet research and marketing and the promoting of FUE, contrary to that, which makes FUE very sexy to do, meaning it's like getting a hair transplant and not really getting a hair transplant. Everybody wants to have a hair transplant to get more hair, but they don't want to have any scarring, and the FUE will leave you with scarring. It's just different types of scarring. So it's very confusing to the newer viewer or the newer researcher, someone that's just getting hair loss, because the internet will make it seem like the FUE is the best technology. It's the latest technology. There's robots, there's different kinds of machines. You know, why would you drive to Los Angeles to get tires for your car when you can go right across the street in Austin, Texas? It makes no sense. FUE is really easy, doesn't matter who does it, and it always works. Absolutely not true. The truth of the matter is that most patients with hair loss are not even candidates for FUE. Why is that? Most guys and girls that are losing their hair have very poor donor hair, or hair that's really not applicable to the FUE procedure, because they're losing their hair. What people don't realize is that when you're losing your hair on the front or on top, you're also getting weaker hair in what we call the donor zone. That automatically disqualifies you as being a hair transplant candidate via FUE. So there's a process to go through. And that doesn't mean that you can never be an FUE candidate. It means that you're right now, today, based on the evaluation we're talking about for you, you're not a candidate because your hair is getting attacked by that DHT. So not to complicate things, I just wanted to put it out there that FUE is a lot more confusing to the researcher than it seems to be, because it's just very easy to say, sign me up. And let's talk about you, Bobby, specifically. So you're a young guy, you just had a little bit of hair loss, you have really good donor hair. You actually are a candidate for either procedure, okay? That's cool, and that's a good thing, but think about this. Ask yourself while you're doing your research, if the FUE was such an amazing procedure, if it was that easy to do, if it was all guaranteed, why would any doctor in this industry continue to do FUT? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. We'll go real quick. Number one, if you're bald, if you've got a lot of hair loss, you're not a candidate for FUE. Number two, if you are someone with weak, thin, fine hair in the back, I just talked about that, you're not a candidate for FUE. If you have really strong hair and you have limited loss, you are a candidate for FUE. So what it really comes down to when choosing the procedure, it really comes down to the type of scarring and your budget, because if you choose a top clinic that does both FUE and FUT, you're gonna pay more for FUE because it's harder to do, no matter what they tell you online, and it takes more time, it's very labor intensive, so you're gonna pay more, about 20% more across the board. So when it comes to choosing as a consumer, which I am and a patient, you are a consumer and a patient, well, what are we really looking for? Well, if you walk in the door of a hair transplant clinic, a specialist, someone that really knows what they're doing, you've done your research, they're board certified, they do both FUE and FUT, and you say, hey, before we even get started here, I want to be able to shave my head, okay? You're not a candidate for FUT. You automatically take yourself off of the pool of patients that have the choice of doing FUT. Now, Bobby's done a few videos, and he's gotten together with his stylist, his hairdresser, and he can show you how you can barely find the scar in the back of his head. But if he shaved his head, there would be a line back there. Some patients don't want that. Whether that's really what they want or don't want, or what the internet told them they want or they don't want, it doesn't make any difference. You're not a candidate for FUT. So when you start to get in the funnel and bring everything down and kind of, figure out what it is you want, what it is you don't want, FUE is a very attractive procedure for those that think, well, maybe my hairline doesn't mean that much to me. What really means a lot to me is the fact I can shave my head. To me, that makes no sense, but that's what a lot of guys are saying. As far as FUT goes, FUT, and this is going to sound odd, but this is the truth, FUT is the gold standard in the procedure. FUT is the gold standard in the industry. It always has been. As far as I can see, it always will be. Well, why is that? Well, the FUE procedure, because of the trauma on the tissue, because of the way the doctors have to handle the tissue, even the best of them, makes it a lot more challenging than FUT. FUT is removed in one strip. There's a perfect, if it's done right, there's a perfect sebaceous gland underneath. Imagine pulling up, if this is possible, a row of crops, and all the roots and all the soil and all the moisture and all the vitamins are intact. And then you go into the barn and you start separating the plants. Well, the nurses in these top clinics are going to go under high-powered microscopes, and they can see exactly how to separate the grafts. They become perfect grafts. That is the FUT procedure. There's less trauma, it's more affordable, better quality grafts. Now, the FUE procedure, you're basically drilling and punching holes in the back of the head. The top doctors in the industry can do that and do that very well. As long as they don't do too many at a time and get tired and hate what they do, then the FUE procedure can be very successful as well. I had the FUE procedure done back about 9 months ago. I'm very pleased with my hairline. It really worked out for me. Now, why did I have the FUE procedure when I have kind of weak hair? Well, I had no choice. I had had so many procedures done in the past that strips no longer allowed me to have any flexibility in my scalp. So there's an example of how the FUE can work for you if you're someone like me. But these questions and answers are geared more toward the younger generation now. And the younger generation likes to think FUE is the newer technology, and it's just simply not. So what you want to do when you go into these clinics is you want to have a series of questions, and Bobby can help you with that because he's a patient, he's a consumer, he did this, he came to me, and he had all the questions in order. That's important. Reach out to him. What's your donor hair like? Go to see a few different clinics. One tells you it's great, the other one tells you it's poor, you got a problem. Look at preventative treatments. Are you willing to use them? He's still on the fence because he's so young. He's using it, his hair looks great. But what if he goes off in a couple of years? Well, then that FUT procedure preserved a lot of hair in the back of his head. The FUE procedure chews up that hair quicker, so you can't go into the bank and get hair over time, or a lot of hair over time. Again, information online is going to try to flip that because they want you to believe the opposite, but it's just simply not true. So there's a few things about the FUT and the FUE. We can talk about this in other videos, Bobby. I'm happy to do it as questions come in, but it is confusing at the same time. You have to make sure you know what you're getting into and look forward long term on where you think you're going to be.
For sure. Yeah, guys, I hope that was very informative for you guys. I know for me, I had to do a lot of research before I even had the surgery. So if you're on the fence about getting a hair transplant and deciding which one you want to do, be sure to do your research and just reach out to some certified hair transplant surgeons, and then make the best decision that's right for you, and go from there, guys. And I hope you liked the video, and thanks again for Steve for coming by as always, and stay tuned for some more hot juicy videos in the future.